So every month of the year, according to the Sefer Yetzirah, which is one of the ancient books of Kabbalah, one of the most ancient books in Judaism, has a specific energy to the month, which it relates to a specific letter in the Hebrew alphabet. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. There are 3 mother letters, which is Aleph, Mem, and Shin, which is A, M, and Sh, which are the 3 basic sounds: the sound of beginning of sound, the end of sound, and the synthesis between sound and silence. And then there's the 7 double letters, which is letters that both have a harsh pronunciation and a lighter pronunciation. And then there are the 12 simple letters. And according to the Sefer Yetzirah, every month is connected with a particular letter. So in order to understand what the month is and what the month represents, we have to explore a little bit of the letter. Besides, in addition to that, there's also elements that we have to explore, which is that every month also has a sense. We know there are 5 senses, but the Sefer Yetzirah speaks about 12 senses, and there's a certain sense of the month, and a certain body part of the month. There's the name of the month, there's the time of the year in the month. So to understand a little bit what the month of Kislev is, and that in itself to understand what is actually the name Kislev, we have to begin with a construct that was given over to us by Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Arizal. The Arizal explains that every month has a formation of the 4 letters of the name of Hashem, which is the Yud, the Hey, and the Vav and the Hey, and every month has a variation of that formation. So the month that's connected, the month of Kislev, which is connected with these 4 letters, is the letters of Vav, Yud, and then Hey, Hey. So let's just divide these for a moment. You have the Yud, which is a point, a dot, and you have the Vav, which is a line. So the Yud and the Vav in this dynamic both represents the masculine, which is the giver. The Hey and the Hey, which are both letters, which is the same letter, but there's the upper Hey and the lower Hey, which are both letters that have volume, both horizontal and vertical expansion, represents the quality of receiving, which is the embodiment of the feminine. Not male and female, but masculine and feminine. So you have a masculine Yud and a masculine Vav, and a feminine Hey and a feminine Hey. Normally the formation would be, there's a Yud, then a Hey, then a Vav, and then a Hey. That's the normal formation of the 4 letters in the name of God, of the Tetragrammaton. And in that formation, the Yud represents the upper giver, which represents the source, the Ein Sof, the infinite light, Hashem, God. And then the Hey represents the receiver of that. Then the Vav represents our participation in the process, and the Hey represents our receiver. So the Yud and the Vav Yud represents Hashem, and the Vav represents us. Normally, the flow of energy that flows down to this world, and certainly in a time when it's something that we're experiencing, the miraculous, something out of the ordinary, in ordinary moments, the flow goes from the Yud, from the upper Yud into the Hey, and then from the Vav flowing into the Hey. This month, the formation actually seems to be reversed, because it starts off with the Vav, which means it starts off with the participation of the human being, our involvement, and our involvement stimulates the upper Yud. So let's understand what this means. There are, in the movement of the months, when we reach the point of Kislev, it's also called the Tkufas Teves. At the end of the month of Kislev is the winter solstice. So essentially what happens now is that the days become shorter and shorter and shorter, and then there's a transformation, or a switch, which is that then the days begin to get longer and longer. On a deeper Kabbalistic level, what this means is that there are 2 forms of light. There's one light that is direct light, which is called Or Yashar, and there's another form of light which is called Or Chazer, which is reflective light. Reflective light is light that's seen through the darkness. Or another way to imagine this would be either you see through a clear glass, which is direct, or you see through a mirror. When you see through a clear glass, it's as if you walk into a room and you open up the lights and you see exactly what's in the room and you walk out. That's one way of knowing. Another way of knowing is that you walk into the room is completely dark, you bump around for a few moments in the darkness, and then you walk out of the room. If you ask person number 1 who walked into the room and the lights were on, what'd you see? He may say, I noticed a table, a chair, but he's uncertain exactly how the table was and what the chair was. But if you ask person number 2, they may not know there was a table and a chair, But if they know that there was an item, and let's say they did feel a table, they'll tell you exactly whether the table was sharp-edged or not sharp-edged, because they really bumped up against the table. That's considered reflective light. Reflective light is a light that comes from the darkness, even though it's not as brilliant as the light that comes direct, but it's more intimate, because the light is something that you experience. It's through the darkness that you reach the point of light. The consciousness or the energy that's related to the month of Kislev is an energy that light comes precisely from the place of darkness. In other words, as the days get longer and longer and longer, and then you have the longest night of the year, and then there's a transformation that then the next day there's a small measure of light that becomes revealed. This is also in terms of the story of Hanukkah, which is that the story of Hanukkah is that it was spiritually, it was the darkest hour of that history in the Second Temple period. And then a small jug of oil was found, and from one day to another day to the next day, for 8 days, that light expanded through a longer period of 8 days, which means that it comes from a place of darkness, and in the darkest hour of exile, and then there's a change, and then a little bit of oil lasts for 8 days. That parallels literally the reality that exists on a physical level, which is as the days get shorter and shorter and shorter, which means there's less light, sunlight, and then it reaches its crescendo at the end, towards the end of the month, and then there's a switch, and the days start getting longer and longer. So it gets darker, and then it starts getting more light. As a parallel to that, as the truth that exists on a metaphysical level is also expressed on a physical level, we have the story of Hanukkah. So the backstory of Hanukkah, which is what allows for Hanukkah to be materialized and revealed, was the inner quality that exists already within the month, which is the potential to reach light through the place of darkness, precisely going through the place of darkness, reaching the point of light. And this is related very much with the qualities that are given over to us, that it relates to the month of Kislev. For example, the month of Kislev is related to the Hebrew letter which is Samach. Samach means from the word Somech, Somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim, that Hashem supports and gives courage to all those that are falling. So there's an idea of falling, which means that it's getting darker and darker. And incidentally, the letter Nun, which represents Nefilah, which is falling, is related to the previous month that we just came from. So we have the idea of getting darker and darker. And Samach Hashem l'chol hanoflim, that Hashem supports all those that are falling, that it gives courage and allows us to break out from the place of our darkness and reach into a place of a light. How do we attain that? How do we attain the place of reaching light through the darkness? For that, we need trust, bitachon. And that is related to, this is also related to the month of Kislev. The month of Kislev, the word Kislev in Hebrew is related to the word Kisli, or Hashem Kislam, that in Hashem we put our trust. That the idea of trust makes the vessel to receive the light. When you trust that even when you're in a place of extreme darkness, and it's very dark in your life, and the days are getting shorter and shorter, physically and also metaphysically, that your darkness, you're experiencing more exile, but you have trust in Hashem, that we can break out of that darkness, that in itself becomes the vessel through which we can receive the light. And that's also similar to the story of Hanukkah, because the story of Hanukkah is that the people had trust, that they believed that they were going to find that jug of oil, and that in itself is miraculous, that they believed they were going to find the jug of oil, and they searched for the jug of oil, and the fact that they searched, and they trusted that they will find the jug of oil, that allowed them to actually find the jug of oil, and to bring light into this world. So the trust becomes the vessel through which we receive the light. And that's also related to the sense of the month. The sense of the month, according to Sefer Yetzirah, is the sense of sleep. And to sleep, you need trust. If you don't trust, people that have problems with sleeping or insomnia, or people that have problems sleeping generally, or they don't sleep peacefully, is because they don't trust. Either they're not going to get up in the morning, or they don't trust the process of sleeping, or they're afraid that they're going to miss something. There's a lack of trust in a person that cannot sleep peacefully. There's actually an interesting verse that some recite before they go to sleep, which is Im tishkav lesichad v'shachachta v'arva shenasachad. That means if you sleep and you won't have any worries, you will sleep and your sleep will be pleasant. Which means that if you have trust in Hashem, if you have trust that you'll wake up in the morning, that your soul will be taken care of, and that your body will be taken care of, if you trust, then you will have a peaceful sleep. So sleep is an element of trust, But there are two types of trust. There's passive trust and there's active trust. Passive trust is when you just trust. You say, I've done my part and I trust that things will work out. That's one level of trust. And literally, I go to sleep and I say, everything will work out for the best. But active trust is not only to trust and say I've done what I can, but to actually engage while you're engaged in what you're doing to have trust. And that's the deeper level of Kislev. It's more an active level of trust that we do. We make the vessel, we have the trust, and we perform, and we try to find the light within our lives, and through that we are allowed to receive the light. And this is what the Ari writes, that the month of Kislev is related to the letter formation of the Vav, Yud, and Hey Hey. The Vav represents us, and that's our participation. So we're participating and we're trusting that we're going to break out of the darkness. Now this can be because we're feeling low, or the days are getting shorter, or it's because of a relationship, or it's because of a job. Whatever we're experiencing in our life, we're feeling constriction, we're feeling darkness, but we feel like we're not going to give up, and we're going to trust, and we're going to put forth, and we're going to try to make a difference. When we do that, that's the lower Vav. We stimulate the upper Yud, which represents Hashem, the infinite, and that stimulates the miraculous. And when the Yud is awakened, the Yud awakens to the miracle. And that's a sarusa dilatata, which means an awakening of below that arouses, an arousal of below that arouses the above, and then the above performs a miracle. So, in a nutshell, basically what we're saying is that when we want to experience Kislev, if we really want to experience the month of Kislev, and to really experience the miracles of Hanukkah, it's not enough to just celebrate the past of what it experienced in the past, and to commemorate what happened in the past, but to really look in our own life and say, we're going through the same Hanukkah story. We're going through the same process, that we're going through the same darkness, we're experiencing the same darkness in our life, and we want to have trust. And by making the trust, and having the trust, and actively involved in our trust, we can perform for ourselves the miraculous and experience Hanukkah in a truly beautiful way. And that's what the month of Kislev represents.